Hey Rip City, this is Anthony Simons, and it's time to open the briefcase with Casey Holdahl.
Greetings, Blazer fans, and welcome to The Briefcase, episode 91 of The Briefcase. Yet another exit interview edition of The Briefcase. I am your host, Casey Holdahl, and we finally have a little bit more clarity on the NBA Draft Lottery odds as the Portland Trailblazers eliminated from the postseason, and the Golden State Warriors, whose first-round pick the Trailblazers own, with a few small stipulations, has also been decided now that the Warriors have also been eliminated from the postseason. We'll do a brief check-in on the Trailblazers lottery odds, the play-in tournament, and hear from veterans Malcolm Brogdon and Matisse Thybulle on this edition of The Briefcase. While we already had a good idea of which draft pick the Trailblazers would get from the Golden State Warriors, assuming that it doesn't end up in the top 4, we have a better sense now with the Kings eliminating the Warriors 118-94 in the 9-10 matchup in the Western Conference play-in tournament. We now know that the Golden State Warriors will be the last lottery team at the 2024 NBA Draft Lottery, and since the Blazers own their first pick, as long as it doesn't end up in the top 4, it seems likely that the Blazers will have a pick near the top of the lottery, their own, and near the bottom of the lottery, Golden State's. It's also worth remembering that the draft lottery is just for the top 4 picks, so once we get to the draft lottery, if the Warriors don't end up with the 14th pick, that means that they've jumped into the lottery, which means the Blazers will not get that pick. So what I'm saying is that we will know right away, or fairly soon, at the NBA Draft Lottery, if the Blazers are going to get Golden State's pick this year, or if that gets pushed off into subsequent years because the Golden State Warriors somehow worked their way up into the top 4. Though the Warriors have just a 3.4% chance of getting a top 4 pick and a 0.7% chance of getting the top overall pick. So basically, if you're the Trailblazers, you want to duck that 3.4 odds. Though one might argue that you'd be better off getting that pick next season than this season, but for the most part, I think you want those picks conveyed sooner rather than later because sometimes those picks don't convey for a while. Ask the Chicago Bulls about them waiting for Portland's draft pick for years and years and years now, going back to the Larry Nance trade. At some point in time, the Blazers will send them a pick. Who knows when that's going to be? So in regards to Golden State, while next season, maybe the pick is a little bit better and the draft is better, I still think that you basically want to get that business squared away. So personally, I think you'd rather get the pick this season than next season. And again, if the Warriors are able to beat a 3.4% chance of getting a top 4 pick, they probably deserve that pick anyways. I mean, they don't, but who am I to argue with the fates? Also worth noting is the Blazers own the 33rd pick, which is the 3rd pick of the second round, and the 48th pick, which is the 10th pick of the second round. And if this really is as lackluster of a draft as many have claimed, those second round picks become even more valuable since they don't lock teams into a guaranteed salary. So if you're a team that's selecting late in the first round, you would almost surely rather have an early second round pick, especially if there's no consensus in this draft, which at this point seems very likely that there will not be, particularly that far down the draft. So those second round picks this year, pretty valuable. In other play-in tournament news, the 8-seed Lakers beat the 7-seed Pelicans 110-106 Tuesday night, so now the Lakers will move on to face the Nuggets in the 2-7 matchup. The Lakers are now the 7-seed due to winning that game, though they would almost certainly rather face the 1-seed Thunder, but that's how it goes. The Kings are now headed to New Orleans to face the Pelicans on Friday, with the winner getting the 8-seed and the loser missing the playoffs. And on the other, much weaker side of the bracket, the 76ers, thanks almost entirely to our good friend Nicholas Batum, defeated the Heat 105-104 Wednesday night in the 7-8 matchup. The Sixers now move on to face the Knicks in the 2-7 matchup. Then the 10-seeded Hawks got thumped 113-116 by the 9-seed Bulls, so Atlanta's season is over, and the Chicago Bulls now face the Jimmy Butlerless Heat team to decide which team gets to go on to lose to the Celtics in the 1-8 matchup in the East. Okay, with all that squared away, let's go ahead and get to more exit interviews. First up, Malcolm Brogdon, who averaged 5.7 points on 44% shooting from the field and 41% shooting from 3, 5.5 assists, and 3.8 rebounds in 28.7 minutes per game this season. Malcolm Brogdon, who the Trailblazers acquired along with Robert Williams III as a part of the Drew Holiday trade, which was a subsequent part of the Damian Lillard trade, appeared in 39 games, 25 starts, though he ended up sitting out with an elbow injury since the beginning of February. Malcolm Brogdon is under contract for next season, reportedly for $22.5 million. During his interview, Malcolm Brogdon talks about his future, which he says is up in the air right now, his thoughts on Scoot Henderson, Chauncey Billups, Portland's locker room and taking on more of a mentorship role, his health, the culture in Portland, and what the team needs, which he actually doesn't answer. So let's go ahead and hear from Malcolm Brogdon at Exit Interviews.
Going into this offseason, what do you hope happens with you specifically? Do you think you're going to be back? Do you think you might be traded? Do you have an idea of what you would like to see for your career moving forward?
As far as my future, I don't know what's going to happen. It's completely up in the air, but I've definitely enjoyed my time here in Portland. It's an incredible fan base that supported the team all year long, and I've built some really great relationships within the organization. So that's really all I can say about it right now.
Malcolm, what did you think about Scoot kind of as the season went on? What do you think you saw from him from the start of the season to now?
I mean, I saw evolution. I mean, I think the last 10, 15 games, I think he took a huge step. We got to see him play some actually really high-level basketball on both ends of the floor, and I don't know, take a jump, honestly. And people, I think, were really hard on him first half of the season. It's hard being a top pick. It's hard dealing with all that pressure. It's something I've never had to experience. And then we saw him sort of step into his own and, accept it all, embrace it, and become a way better player than he was at the beginning of the season. So I think as far as for Scoot, he should be very satisfied, still hungry, but happy with how he performed and finished the season and the strides he made, because he made huge strides, and we saw why he was a third pick.
What kind of jump did you make mentally from year 1 to year 2 after going through the process of not just learning yourself and how to navigate an offense, but learning the rest of the league as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think this league more than anything is mental. A big part of it's physical, but the sort of mental fortitude that you have to build while you're in this league is what separates guys from being out of the league in a few years versus staying for, a long tenure. So year 1 to year 2 was huge for me, because you come in, guys don't really know how you play. There's not really a scouting report. For me, I was a second-round pick. There wasn't a lot of pressure. I got Rookie of the Year, and then, the scouting report is out. You're supposed to take another big jump. My second year was I had another good year, but it was tough, and I realized this is all mental. So I mentally have to figure out how to navigate this and continue to get better as far as, working on my game every summer and just get smarter with how I work.
How would you assess Chauncey's performance coaching a team with a lot of young players where you're trying to develop and also navigating the massive amount of injuries?
I thought he was incredible. I know people give him a lot of heat, which, I think they do in any high-level, high-stakes organization. The coach is going to get a lot of heat, but I think with the injuries we had and the amount of, young talent we had and, development we had going on, I thought he did everything he could. I think this would be a tough job for any coach that takes it, because it was a young team that's trying to figure it out. There's not a lot of experience. I thought he did a great job.
What was it like for you this year, going from a situation like you had in Boston, where you guys were in the conference finals, or I guess in Indy, you guys were in the playoffs pretty much every year in the mix before that, and now you come to this team where it's you're the veteran, you're kind of the guy that's like trying to help along these young guys on a team that comes into the season knowing that it's going to be like a young rebuilding thing. Like, what was that transition like for you personally?
Yeah, it's definitely, for me, this year was more mental than physical, trying to make the adjustment of being the guy in the locker room that guys look to for advice and guidance, structure. But I embraced it. I actually enjoyed the role. I thoroughly enjoy these young guys. I think they're smart, they're hardworking, they're good, high-character guys. So I enjoyed working with each and every one of them. So, I can't say enough about the guys we have on this team. And as far as a locker room, this is as good as the locker room gets as far as high-level people. So, yeah, I enjoyed the year.
Malcolm, where are you at right now physically? Is the elbow good?
The elbow is good. I'm not 100%, but I'm definitely getting there. I'm taking huge strides. I don't know if you've seen me, but I've been on the court working out, shooting, really doing almost everything. Not everything, but almost everything. So I'm feeling really good.
How close were you to being able to come back and play at the end of the year?
As far as percentage, I don't know. I don't know if I was like on the brink of coming back, but as I said, I was making strides. I was definitely getting there.
Malcolm, Chauncey and Joe talked about creating a culture here, past couple of seasons. I mean, what do you think is the culture being built here or has been built, in Portland?
I think it's a blue-collar, tough, gritty culture. I think it has to be, because there's so many young guys, and then the young guys you have are, Scoot is tough. If he's going to be the franchise guy, it's going to be an organization and a team built around toughness, because he's what toughness looks like to me as a young guy. And this organization has to have a fighter's mentality, an underdog mentality. That has to be the identity going forward. Because as a team, people are going to sleep on as we start to really turn things around and take steps and try to get into the playoffs next year.
Malcolm, as it pertains to taking those steps, what from sitting in kind of watching this team, what does this team need to move forward?
I don't know. I'm not the GM, so my job is to show up and lead on the court in the locker room. But as far as what the team needs, I'm glad I don't have to make those decisions.
It seems like the first thing it needs is to stay off the injury list, right?
Yeah,
Do you think that had this team been remotely reasonably healthy, that it could have been a lot better? Maybe even pushed close to the play?
Of course. I think this team has great pieces, but I think we have to get healthy. I think that's a huge thing for us. It's a huge team for every team. It's a huge thing for every team, but specifically for us, we had a lot of guys injured this year, and us getting healthy will definitely give us a chance to be in that play-in at the very least.
So there you go, Malcolm Brogdon talking about his first season with the Portland Trail Blazers. I think the comments about his future are probably the most interesting parts there. I think people understand that Malcolm is at one place in his career, and the Trail Blazers, as they're developing, probably at a different place right now. And whether or not those two timelines match up, I think gives you an impression of what Malcolm's future might be going forward. Now, granted, a lot of people thought that he was going to get traded this season anyways, but the fact that he didn't gives you some cause to believe that maybe Malcolm is on this team long term. But Malcolm was also an absolute trooper this season, so I would imagine whatever Malcolm wants to do this offseason, the team will probably try to facilitate that. All right, now on to a veteran spending his second season in Portland, Matisse Thybulle, who averaged 5.4 points on 40% shooting from the field and 35% shooting from three, 2.1 rebounds, 1.4 assists, 1.7 steals, and nearly a block in 65 games, 19 of those being starts. Matisse is under contract for next season, reportedly for around $11 million, and has a player option the next season after that. Matisse, always a very thoughtful guy, and throughout the course of his exit interview, Matisse talks about the challenging season that didn't go the way he wanted it to, playing for the Australian national team in the upcoming Summer Olympics in Paris, the injuries the Trailblazers faced this season, Chauncey Billups as a teacher, and having the opportunity to expand his game. So let's go ahead and hear from Matisse at exit interviews in Tualatin. In general, how do you leave the season? How do you look back on it?
I guess the way I've been putting it is it was challenging, and there was a lot that didn't go the way I wanted it to as an individual and as a team. But I think through all of that, there was a lot of opportunity to learn. So I think for myself, my biggest takeaway was just having been present for the lessons that were available and feeling like I was able to grow as a person and a player in spite of the struggles that we had as a team.
Matisse, are you going to play for Australia this summer?
Yeah. We'll start training camp in June in Australia, so I'll have a busy summer. It'll be like 2 years of straight basketball after this one, which is an awesome opportunity. And I'm excited because I'll get to spend more time with Doo-Wop.
How's the ankle?
Ankle's getting better. Yeah, it's getting better. Yeah, I'll probably start training again soon just to get prepared for my next training camp.
Chauncey talked about how he would like to have seen what this roster could have done had the injuries not ravaged you guys. What do you think would have been the potential for this team without the injuries? And was it pretty frustrating for you being a part of that list and watching people constantly go in and out of the lineup?
Yeah, it was tough. I was talking to Ant about this because he was like, I swear it's only Portland. Like, we just get so many injuries. And he's like, because there's no sun. He's like, there's got to be. I mean, obviously coming from Florida, of course he thinks that. But he's like, there's no sun. That's why we all get hurt. But no, it's super challenging. But it's a part of it, right? Like, I haven't had a year in this league where we didn't have guys go down due to injury. It's so rare to see anyone play through a season without missing a game. And if they do, they're still injured. They just find a way to make it work. Yeah, it's not ideal. And if anything, it's just one of those hurdles or a piece of adversity that like helps you learn or find a new direction to take things. But yeah, it's I hate to say that's par for the course, but to a certain degree, like it is. It's what like you sign up for. We're not football players, so we don't have to worry about like anything super crazy. But in basketball, it's still a contact sport, and you end up having things go wrong.
But given that I think you guys finished with the second most lost games to injury in the entire league, does that lend hope then that maybe next year, if you guys can be healthy, even without making a ton of moves, that this team could be a ton better?
Yeah, I mean, could we be better if we had all of our if we had our best players playing?
I mean, maybe even be in the running for a play-in as opposed to just a few games better.
I guess you don't know. I'd like to think so. I think that we have really talented guys. You never know how the pieces are going to fit together, but I think having our guys versus not having our guys gives us the best opportunity.
But that was also part of the problem with the season, is that you said you don't know how everything fits together. And one of the goals of the season was to see how everything fit together, and that wasn't really able to be accomplished.
It sounds like someone has quite the challenge on their plate to decide if it's going to be another year of trying to see how things fit together, or if it's going to become, how can we win now? And I'll show up and do my job after they figure out what they're going to do with theirs.
Matisse, what's Chauncey like as a teacher?
That's a good question. Me and him just got done talking about that. I think he has a presence, which I'm sure we've all felt. And I think as a player, when he would take the time to stop a practice or stop a shoot around and direct us or teach something, it was felt across the board. It was like those moments where everyone just kind of can breathe and feel grounded again. And I don't know how to really quantify that or put it into words, but he has an ability to create understanding for players across the board. Because we had a unique roster where we have a guy who's played 10 seasons, and we have multiple guys who can't even buy alcohol. And being able to explain something in a way that everyone across that spectrum can grasp it and then apply it. Yeah, I think it just speaks a lot to his ability to do that, because it's not easy. Even if it's really easy to talk big picture, high level things, just because, especially for him, because he's done it and lived it. But the real challenge comes from being able to explain the simple stuff. And in my experience, he's done one of the best jobs of doing that.
Steve, it seems like you're a guy that wants to make kind of deeper, connections with your teammates and coaches and whatnot. I mean, do you feel like you've been able to do that with this coaching staff and the teammates that you've had here in Portland?
Yeah, it's a little bit away from basketball. It's a weird environment, right? Like we call each other a family or brothers or whatnot, but in all reality, it's like we were chosen by other people to work together. And I think in an environment like that, this has been one of my favorite experiences, having turned it into real relationships, because it can very easily stay as just coworkers or strangers to a certain degree. But I think we did a good job, and I don't know if it was a conscious effort or just a testament to the people that we have on the staff and the players that we have. But yeah, it felt like there was a level of care or understanding of each other as human beings that doesn't always happen in this line of work.
Matisse, what is your hope for yourself professionally going forward? You know, when you first got to Portland, you talked about being able to expand your game and kind of do some things that maybe you hadn't been able to do before. So what does that look like for you now, going into kind of the real, I guess, meat of your prime?
Mm-hmm. This year was, on a team that's trying to figure themselves out, there's a lot more opportunity for individuals to explore themselves as players. And I feel like I got that chance this year, whether it was initiating the offense or being an option off the dribble or just more catch and shoot or movement shooting. And so for me, having now done it, because we can all do it in the off season, right? And think about it and all those things, but it's very, very different once you've done it in an NBA game. And so now to have had that experience, for me, it's take that and then just refine it. Because in my previous years in the league, I just didn't have the experience. So I didn't know what more I could do. Obviously, you think you can do so much when it's just you, the ball, and the hoop. But when it's the structure of an NBA game and everything that comes with that, I was able to show that I could do a little bit more. And so then I guess for me, this offseason will just be to get better at those things.
So there you go, Matisse Thybulle giving his impressions of the 2023-24 season for the Portland Trail Blazers. I thought it was interesting that particularly the two of the more veteran guys, Matisse Thybulle and Malcolm Brogdon, both pointed out that it wasn't their responsibility, nor were they willing to opine on what the Trailblazers need to do in this offseason. I thought Matisse was especially strong about that, declaring that that's not my job and somebody else has a whole lot of work to do in order to figure out just what direction this team is going to go. I think generally, veteran guys a little less likely to be okay with the amount of losing the Blazers did this season. Obviously, young guys don't like it either, but I think they realize at the beginning of their careers, they're learning how to play, and they're getting opportunities to play because the team is not especially winning a whole lot of games. Guys like Malcolm Brogdon, guys like Matisse Thybulle have been around, have been on winning teams, and I feel like for those kind of guys, it comes across a little bit differently for them. And while I think they were okay with it, I think the amount of time that they'll be okay with it probably a bit different than guys that are just starting their careers. And that's going to do it for this edition of The Briefcase. Thank you so much for joining me. As always, we'll have more exit interviews as the offseason rolls on over the next couple weeks. But until then, thank you for joining me. I am Casey Holdahl. Go Blazers.